Teamwork is the single most valuable skill for any game developer. Without it, even the most talented individuals can struggle in this industry, because video games are one of the most complex technology and artifacts that humankind have created. They involve hundreds of people's different work across multiple disciplines, making communication the most important resource in any video game. That's why it's super important to know how to work well not only with teammates, but also with your bosses and even with the company culture in general. And I tell you this based on my own experience in the industry, since I don't consider myself an exceptional programmer, but I've always been told that my communication and conflict resolution skills stand out, and I contribute a lot of my career success on those skills, because I think soft skills like this can be as much, if not more, of game changers in careers in game development as much as technical skills. And today I want to show you how you can leverage them too. In my opinion, the thing you need to learn by heart about working well with other teammates is to respect other people's time. Because to me, this is one of the most respectful things you can do for other person. No wonder why it's so difficult to do it on a consistent basis. But there are lots of ways in which you can communicate this. For example, if you are just starting on any position, it's not rare for you to have a lot of questions about the job. And usually your manager is gonna tell you, a senior person, to go to ask those questions. One cool technique you can use in this situation is to batch all of your questions in one go, and to recompile all the things you've tried on the problem you are facing which didn't work. This way, when you go to this person to ask about the problem you are facing, you can tackle all the questions in one session and you can avoid talking about the obvious solution you've already tried. I can assure you, if you work this habit in your team, a lot of people are gonna value you a lot, because being interactive for someone to ask you something that they could have looked up in the documentation or that is just plain obvious is one of the worst things to experience. But respecting other people's times also means giving up control on your tasks. For example, if you are responsible for a whole mechanic in the game, you cannot pretend to control everything on that mechanic, and you have to think of yourself as a cog who is part of the whole machine, which is the mechanic, meaning that there are some things that you just have to trust the other teammates to do their work well, and saying to other teammates that you need these tasks to be done, but you only care about the results and not the process, and that you trust their judgments over how the task should be tackled, is a really nice gesture when it comes to teamwork, because it tells the other person that you value their work a lot, and that you are not gonna waste any time of theirs trying to control how they are doing their work. And as we have talked about in the channel before, having more ownership for the task you are doing gives you more enjoyment over the process, which in the end makes you do a better job. But being a good teammate and making other people on your team happy also creates an environment in which you can foster positive bonding. Because if you think about it, it's so easy to bond with other teammates on complaints. I vividly remember sometimes in my last company in which I have made friends just for the simple fact of complaining about the company, the position, or the game itself. And yeah, I know we humans like to complain a lot, and there is nothing which unites more than a common enemy. But I have found out that the best world and the best friendships at work come from sharing a positive experience, being liking the game you are working on, or simply having chemistry with a teammate. So I want you to fight a little bit with your instincts and not complain too much, and start bonding with someone in your work for something positive. Okay, if you want to take something out from this video, is that your boss is not looking for an excuse to fire you. After recruiting people for myself, I can tell you that hiring other people is one of the most excruciating and horrible process a human being can have. And finding the A players, i.e. the best workers, is super duper difficult to do. So if you are very good at what you do in your job, I can assure you that your boss is the person who wants to keep you in the company the most. Meaning that the only thing good bosses want to do when they give you a task is to take their own workload onto you. Meaning that if they give you a task, the only two things they want in return are A, constant review of how the work is going, and B, the actual result. And okay, I get it, there are some bosses who are exactly the opposite of what I'm saying, but that just means that they are bad bosses, and you have to avoid it if you can. I know this is not always possible, and sometimes you just have to live with a bad boss. If that's the case for you, I have a video right here in which we talk how to handle a difficult job situation. But for the rest, let's just focus on giving constant review over your work. And this doesn't have to be a complete list of all the tasks you are working on and the problems you are facing. You just need to give a little bit of a note each week about what is your main priority and what are the things that you need from your boss. Because as book as 9 Lives of Work has told that the key to success for team to leader communication is consistency over the weeks, meaning that giving a mini review each week is much more efficient than giving a super long review each month. And this is more of a personal advice than anything, but I think you should put an special effort on asking for what you want. Because I see a lot of game developers who work very well, but they don't get what they want simply because they don't ask for it. And you know, the worst thing you're gonna get is a no. Again, your boss is not looking for an excuse to fire you. And one little trick a producer of mine told me is to try to get the other person to simply say yes. Meaning that if, for example, you want to work on a certain mechanic, you don't ask something like, what's the next mechanic for me gonna be? But say something in the likes of, do you find reasonable if I work in this mechanic right now? Because that way the only thing that your manager needs to say is yes. Alright, I think video games companies underrate the importance of company culture, when in reality is one of the most important things for any boss to create. So being able to adapt to the company culture is super duper important for your career success. And again, since communication is so important in video game development, one crucial habit to have is to over-communicate everything you do. If you have the slightest doubt about everything being obvious or not, that's a sign that it's not obvious and you need to say it out loud. For example, if you doubt if the player should fall down faster when the player releases the jump button, that's a sign that it hasn't been clearly stated anywhere, and you should definitely ask directly the design team and then communicating to all other teams. Because if you don't and then build the mechanic about what you think is obvious and then people see it and want to change it back, it's gonna be a nightmare, trust me. So please, for the love of God, always over communicate things in game development. Because there is nothing wrong with saying the same thing over and over again, but not saying things and working on your own is a really serious problem. And I know it can be a little bit scary to talk with all your bosses about the work you're doing, but it all comes down to be proactive enough and to prefer to ask for forgiveness than for permission. And you know, if you try something new and you mess up, you can always fix your mistake. But if you freeze and never do the thing you want to do, you can never go back and do it again, because the opportunity has already passed. And one way to practice this proactivity skill of yours is to start giving public praise to your teammates. Quoting again 9 Lives for Work, recent data has shown that the best way to obtain excellence from people is not to give them negative feedback, let alone ignore them, but to give public and positive feedback about their work, because this makes that the other person's work foster their strengths. And it turns out that excellence in work comes from fostering the strengths of people and not on fixing their mistakes. So a really nice habit to have is to put a little message on groups when you see other people doing their work well, saying what you like about it and how it made you feel. And it's not like you are a sucker, you are just a good teammate. The best thing about what we have talked about is that you can use the same skills you are building right now to also meet new people in the industry, because usually the biggest opportunities of your career are gonna come from your network. So if you want to continue learning about these things, I have a video right here talking about the best way to do networking in game development, shifting your mindset from gaining contact to making friends, which made the process not only much efficient but much more fun. I hope you find it helpful and I see you later. Bye bye.